There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Shaw talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
Hello, good listeners. Today's program takes a little explaining before we start it. It's an expose on Planned Parenthood. And I want to let you know that this is shocking. It shocked me. I thought I knew all the bad things about them. And don't think I've just got some information off the wall. I have verified the information. I talked with my good friend Flip Benham. For those that don't know Flip Benham, he's former director of Operation Rescue, former national director of Operation Save America. I knew a lot about one of the people mentioned in here, Matt Staver and the Liberty Council, but I checked with Flip to make sure they were both still on track and credible. And he even told me about Dr. Michael Brown, who I've never heard of, and it was he that held the interview. I have checked this out, and it is true. Michael Brown, Dr. Michael Brown, said for many of the radical left, abortion is just a right. Not a right. It is a right. The first right, R-I-G-H-T, the second right, R-I-T-E. Sometimes truth is not only stranger than fiction, it goes way beyond fiction. It's also more disturbing than fiction. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the abortion industry. This because they're selling baby parts. They're meticulously collected and systematically labeled for immediate, profitable sale. Not only so, but after all this often takes place without the knowledge of the mother, who recovers in a waiting room nearby. And if reports are accurate, some of the slicing and dicing is done while the baby is still alive. Again, I know of Matt Staver, have for years, and also Liberty Council. They are both credible, conservative, Christian organizations. Anyway, Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Council, a Christian legal organization, now is defending a Sandra Merritt against Planned Parenthood. Merritt is described as a courageous pro-life grandmother who exposed Planned Parenthood's horrific trade in baby body parts. Together with David Dalian, founder of the Center for Medical Progress, Merritt recorded secret videos of Planned Parenthood leaders and workers discussing the sale of baby parts for profit. Well, obviously this created shockwaves for the abortion giant. Now as the trial proceeds, shocking, heart-rending testimonies are being heard. On Dr. Brown's program, his show, Staver referred to, quote, amazing situations, end quote, where Planned Parenthood clinics were taking babies and intentionally aborting them so they could harvest intact organs, some of which were born alive while their hearts were still beating. Hearts were being removed while they were still alive. That's a quote from Matt Staver. He continued, and I'm quoting, brains were being removed while the hearts are still beating, and we have evidence where they sliced into the baby's face in two with a scalpel and then extracted the brain while the baby was still alive. End quote. Man, who can imagine such things? Who would even envision them in a work of fiction? Yet according to Staver, these are 100% accurate accounts. And the motivating force behind these allegations is greed. Let that sink in for a minute, folks. Think of it. Staver, who is speaking of Planned Parenthood's inhuman, unthinkable, unspeakable acts. Yet, Planned Parenthood was not alone in the savaging of the unborn. According to Staver, companies like STEM Express had a full menu on their website where you could make customized choices when ordering your baby parts. And folks, this is me talking here. I had a lady in my office check that out on October 23rd, the website for STEM Express. And it's true. They're selling baby parts there, and they're advertising them there, or at least they were on October 23rd of this year. Staver explained, you could actually go to the website and select what you wanted, a certain heart at a certain gestation, at a certain size, intact. Then STEM Express would take that to Planned Parenthood that day. They would fulfill that order from those babies that were brought in, never even telling the parent, the mom. They didn't even tell her what was happening. They didn't tell her what was going on with her child in the room next door. Staver was not exaggerating when he stated that if he described such procedures without revealing the age of the victim, we would think this was going on in Nazi Germany. A recent report on the Liberty Counsel website carried the headlines, quote, "Selling Baby Scalps," end quote. They stated that a former board member for the Center for Medical Progress testified during the civil trial in the San Francisco Federal District Court that the scalps of babies provided by the abortion industry are being harvested for research in treating baldness. Can you believe it? Yeah, selling baby scalps for treating baldness. The mind boggles when trying to comprehend such cruel, cold, and calculated barbarity. Yet we dare not close our eyes or stick our heads in the sand. All of this is happening on our watch, folks. All of it. Compare the horrific ancient practice of child sacrifice with late-term and partial birth abortion procedures. Perhaps this doesn't sound so extreme to you after hearing some of Staver's testimony. Ironically, after Pastor Robert Jeffries made a similar comparison during a recent radio interview referencing Moloch, the ancient god of child sacrifice, the leftists responded with sarcastic glee. One tweeted, quote, "All hail Moloch, his will be done." Another wrote, quote, "Don't mess with our god, Modoc," end quote. Yet what they posted in jest is not without truth. That's because for many of those on the radical left, abortion is not just a right. It is a right, a venerated right, a sacred right. Do not mess with our rights to abort, they say. Not surprisingly, most of the Democrat presidential candidates are veering further to the left when it comes to abortion, to the point that most of the candidates now support bills which enacted would actually legalize some of the crimes committed by abortionist Kermit Gosnell. All of this leads to a simple question. What are you and I going to do to stop this horrific practice? And how can we offer a message of life and hope to mothers and fathers who want to abort? Somehow, some way, we must shout to the nation the humanity of the unborn child and the sacredness of life. Then, just as loudly, we're going to have to bring the attention of the nation, the propriety of the actions of the Planned Parenthood and their cohorts. If each of us does our part, through sharing the message, through pro-life activism, through voting and campaigning, through prayer and compassion, we can turn the tide. And we owe it to the little ones to take that action today. Again, I consulted with my good friend Flip Benham on much of this. By the way, if you're a pastor, or if you're a youth leader, or in a civic group, you'd like to have Pastor Flip Benham bring his message to you, I'd be happy to forward your name and number. Call my office, Lincoln Log Homes, 704-932-6151. If you're out of the Charlotte area, long distance, save the bill, 800-848-3310. Call and leave a message anytime. I'll call you back and arrange for you to talk with Flip personally. Now, this is What in the World is Going On. I am your host, Richard Schaff. We are sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes, and we're proudly pro-Christian, pro-American, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and here with you today by the grace of God. On the same subject of abortion, I have another article that came in just recently, after this first article came in earlier this week, titled All Heartbeats Matter. There's a state senator named Doug Mastrino up in Pennsylvania, and he introduced a new piece of legislation that'll make it illegal to kill anyone with a heartbeat in the state of Pennsylvania. He explained that the Supreme Court made its infamous Roe v. Wade decision to legalize abortions over 40 years ago, all based on an outdated science. The court ruled that a baby inside a mother is only a collection of tissues, not a living person. Since 1973, when the court made that decision, science and the medical community have overwhelmingly demonstrated the exact opposite. A baby with a beating heart inside her mother is a human being and is alive, and the heart starts beating far sooner than previously known. He explained that the basis for the new bill is not a partisan effort to hurt women or women's rights, but simply a standard medical practice of recognizing a heartbeat as a sign of life. Stephanie Borowitz is a state representative who's sponsoring the legislation in Pennsylvania in the House of Representatives, while Mastorino brings it into the Senate. Both are serving their freshman terms, and both thought the issue was worth starting with. It's only in corrupt institutions that incoming freshmen are often the wisest and the boldest. The new bill is straightforward. If we pronounce death when a heart stops, we ought to pronounce life when a heart starts. Borowitz explained that when a paramedic arrives at an emergency scene, the first thing he or she does is check for the heartbeat. If the heart is beating, the person's alive. If it is not beating, the person is dead. A heartbeat is the most obvious sign of life, she said. By the same way, there's never been a person with two beating hearts. They don't beat at the same time. Never has been. Everybody just gets one. She told a story the first time she was pregnant and the joy of hearing two heartbeats on an ultrasound. The first heartbeat was her own, loud and strong and healthy. The second was smaller and lighter. That was her son. At that point in his life, Borowitz explained, her son had no voice. He was unable to speak. But his heartbeat was there, and the heartbeat was his voice. It was saying, I'm alive, I am here, and I am a person. Her stronger, louder heartbeat was speaking to his. Together, two people were alive, neither of whom had the right to stop the heartbeat of the other. Kathy Barnett also spoke at the meeting. Her mother was raped at age 11 by a 20-year-old. Her mother also heard two heartbeats, and Kathy is alive today, writing books, speaking in Capitol buildings, going on TV, and raising two kids of her own. Her heart is still beating. I know that because I met her. I met her mother also, whose heart is also still beating. Kathy has as much right to live as her mother does, and we're all better off because of them. Kathy said she survived the most dangerous location in the world for a black person, namely her mother's uterus. It'd be safer to put a newborn infant in an alley at midnight in Baltimore than for her to live inside her mother, she said. Go ahead and fact-check me on that one. Her words. Indeed, the most recent numbers reported by the CDC that roughly 400 black babies are aborted for every 1,000 live births. The numbers are tear-jerking and appalling to everyone except those inside the abortion industry. You see, it isn't fair to just blame black mothers for the high abortion rate. It's the predatory industry itself that builds abortion mills in black neighborhoods and targets black women in their advertising. It's an industry that promotes early childhood sex indoctrination for the purpose of making money off pregnant, scared teenagers who don't know what else to do. Kathy pointed out that these efforts are not accidental. Planned Parenthood targets black communities on purpose and always has. The broader purpose of the abortion mill industry, beyond making money, is to depopulize undesirable people groups, namely black Americans. This isn't Barnett's pet conspiracy theory. You can fact-check her on it. When paramedics arrive to a scene with no heartbeat, the EMS workers will begin chest compressions. This in an effort to keep the person alive by artificially creating a heartbeat. Heartbeats are the currency of our lives. We only have a certain number of them, and nobody knows how many that they're going to get. By this point, you've probably spent about 400 heartbeats listening to this report. They're gone now. You'll never get them back. That was your choice. If you're done doing something different for the past 5 minutes or so, your heartbeats would have been spent that way. How selfish would it be to rob someone else of theirs? Their heartbeats. How evil it would be. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf has already said he's going to veto this bill when it gets to his desk. He believes that some heartbeats don't matter, and he has the political authority to dictate which ones do. But Mastorino is an Army colonel and war historian, and he has 4 master's degrees. He knows how to fight and how to win. He says you don't get victories by capitulating. I fought for the lives of Americans for 30 years, and I'm not stopping until my final heartbeat. A quote from him. Let us use our limited heartbeats, folks, in the same manner. Let us stand strong. And again, if you'd like to have Flip Benham speak in your church before your civic group, call 704-932-6151 or 800-848-3310. I'll get you in touch with him. Now to another subject, completely different subject. Let's now go to the subject of the impeachment of the most pro-life president in America's history. Isn't that something? Man, if that's not satanic, I don't know what is. A different subject, but see how it ties in. Well, I got this from Daily Caller on the impeachment, where they note that they asked every GOP senator about impeachment, and only 7 ruled it out. Most Republican senators refused to rule out voting to remove Donald Trump from office in an impeachment trial over the Ukraine scandal when they were contacted by Daily Caller this past week. The caller contacted all 53 Republican Senate offices last Monday and Tuesday to ask if senators would rule out voting to remove Trump from office, and they received a variety of responses, but only 7 senators explicitly rejected impeachment in their statement. I'm very proud to say that North Carolina's Tom Tillis was one of them. Incidentally, this all made national news. This came to me from the Drudge Report. Senator Tom Tillis' office rejected impeachment. He personally said it, and I quote, he told them this, and I'm quoting it, Senator Tillis has reviewed the transcript and the complaint, and you can put this out, that I strongly believe there is zero basis to even entertain the impeachment of the president. End quote, by North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis. Senator, I am personally proud of you for that. Tillis stood by the same statement when it was asked to him again a few days later. This after the testimony of Ambassador Taylor. Again, quoting Tillis, Democrats have been trying to impeach President Trump from the moment he was elected, and they continue to play partisan political games to try to overturn the results of the 2016 election and influence the 2020 election. This, an end quote, from Tillis in a statement. And he also added, quote, Democrats are taking a page out of the Kavanaugh playbook by flooding the zone with baseless allegations and denying any sort of due process. Again, a quote from Senator Tom Tillis. The typical answer was something like this, quote, the whole point of the Senate's role is to serve as a jury while evidence is presented. I won't prejudice that responsibility by answering a hypothetical question. That a quote from North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer to the caller in his statement. The House should not present articles of impeachment without evidence to support such an awesome responsibility. So far, they appear on a 3-year fishing expedition. Continuing to quote North Dakota Senator Cramer. The answers varied. Some were evasive. And I'm sad to say that North Carolina Senator Burr's office declined to comment altogether. Meanwhile, let this sink in. The New York Times poll shows in 6 swing states the majority oppose impeachment. 53% of voters in 6 battleground states oppose impeaching President Donald Trump and removing him from office. This according to a New York Times Siena College poll. 43% in the swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Arizona support impeachment and removal. The survey come from the key states were released last Monday, and here's how they break down. 92% of the Republicans oppose impeachment and removal, compared to 5% who support it. 14% of Democrats oppose impeachment and removal, while 84% support it. 55% of independents are against impeachment and removal, compared to 39 who back it. The poll was conducted October 13th through 20, surveying 1,934 registered voters in these battleground states. The margin of error is plus or minus 2.8%. Trump touted the poll results in a tweet last Tuesday morning in which he quoted Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends, who said, quote, I thought a very revealing poll was done by the New York Times. By about a 10% margin, those in battleground states, those that were polled are against impeaching the president. And if Nancy Pelosi doesn't take note of that, maybe she is a third-rate politician, end quote. It may make a difference, folks. It very well may make a difference. More good news. We've got some good news on the probe of the 16 campaign surveillance. That campaign is being surveyed. It's being investigated by U.S. Attorney John Durham. And since this report came out, it's been announced that it is now turned to a criminal investigation. It's on breaking news. The Justice Department investigation of the investigators was being expanded based on new evidence uncovered during a recent trip to Rome, Italy by Attorney General William Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham. This was on Fox News. Durham has been tasked with investigating the origin of the 2016 election meddling investigation and potential criminality activity or corruption by government officials, according to the FBI and the intelligence. Now, since that article came out, they have turned it into a criminal investigation. Former senior Obama administration officials, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper and CIA Director John Brennan are being considered for interviews because of their connection to the Christopher Steele dossier on President Donald Trump and surveillance of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. This, according to a Fox News source. The rumors are true that IG Michael Horowitz's report and findings in Durham's review will blast the conduct of the FBI's Russia investigation. It will give Trump a lot of ammunition to support his argument that he was unjustly targeted then and is being unjustly targeted now. This according to a House GOP source to Fox News last Tuesday. It'll justify Trump's warning that a deep state acting to hobble his presidency has been active since he even started to run. Also, according to the report, documents obtained by Fox News shows Australia has initiated an offering of assistance to the investigation, this contradicting Democrats' impeachment inquiry claims that President Trump is pressuring foreign countries to investigate his political rivals. It is now a criminal investigation. Praise God. Now, some of my reasoning for supporting Trump. I guess maybe I am, well, a one person, one object, one issue person, because anyone that's for abortion, I'm going to vote against. And as I said earlier in this broadcast, our president, Donald Trump, is the most pro-life president. Has done more. He's taken away the funding for Planned Parenthood, been against the unborn to a stronger extent than anyone that I have seen. Leftist heroes of the week, Hillary, Schiff, and Mitt. We should all realize that the Democrats are floundering badly. They're like fish out of water. Because they're activists, they're defenders in league with corrupt media, are the grossly dishonest and deluded Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff, and now the poor, pathetic Mitt Romney. One issue, folks, and this could be it for me. Pelosi's right there with Schiff. She's the wind beneath his little flapping wings. You see, Hillary has, for all to see, gone completely bonkers. Since she lost the election, she's blamed too many people and groups and mindsets to list. This past week, she escalated her paranoia by claiming that Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein were both, quote, Russian assets. She said this to Obama operative David Plouffe on a podcast, and he didn't even gasp in disbelief. He pretended she is sane. Hillary, Schiff, Mitt Romney, they've actually been made a laughingstock of. We should all be grateful that this woman never made it to the White House, referring to Hillary. The entire Russia hoax began with her. The Steele dossier was commissioned by her. The Mueller investigation that wasted taxpayers' dollars, millions of them, that resulted in Trump being cleared, is on her head. The entire monstrous travesty was her baby. Sure, the deep state thugs like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and so on, they were only too happy to get on board. They loathed and feared an outsider like Trump and wanted to ensure that their own job was secure. So they all colluded to derail Trump's candidacy and then his presidency. Those people, all of them, they're diabolical, wholly without a shred of honor or decency. Then there's Adam Schiff, the most inept congressman from California, who Pelosi, in a moment of extraordinary poor judgment, appointed to be the head of the House Intelligence Committee. That powerful position went to his head, already addled by his hatred for Trump. There's nothing more ridiculous than a morally and mentally deficient person who believes that others see them as brilliant and powerful. Schiff and Hillary share that trait. Hillary, as we all know now, was never the smartest woman in any room. Schiff is an embarrassment to his committee and his constituents. If he really believes that the American people are being fooled by his Stasi-like secret hearings meant to support his intention to see Trump impeached, he's sadly mistaken. Like Hillary, Schiff has become a man who invites mockery. The Republicans were right to censor him. The Democrats stuck together and they voted against censor, but surely he's a terrible liability. Schiff operates as though he had been trained by the Nazis or the Stalinists. He ignores all of our constitutional protections and rights, those rights to due process. And his colleagues in the House bury their heads in the sand. This man is pure pond scum. What does one say about Mitt Romney's descent into elite madness? A fake Twitter account? It's as though he was in middle school himself. Those who supported his bid for the presidency in 2012 should be shocked and horrified by his childish attempts to take Trump down, to see him impeached. What became of this man we all believed in to be above reproach? He wanted to be Trump's Secretary of State. When that didn't happen, he seems to be bitter and has regressed to schoolyard bullying. He's cozying up to the people who did everything in their power to see that he was defeated by Obama, to their everlasting shame. He's chosen the left and the silly never-Trumpers over the country, and Trump's phenomenal success, his success as president. Sad to see it, Pierre Delecto. Who would choose such a silly name as that, an alias, huh? I guess Anthony Weiner did. Anyway, Mitt's not the good man we thought he was. He's let his resentment overtake his love for country. Most Americans who pay attention to politics, especially conservatives, have long realized that the members of the Beltway self-appointed elite care little about the 330 million plus people who inhabit and love this nation. They care first and foremost about the preservation of their own power and the wealth that inevitably comes with it. The Clintons and Obamas came to office without any great wealth, but they left us multi-millionaires through graft and pay to play. They were bought and paid for by those to whom they sold themselves. It's all in the books, folks. We saw it live, didn't we? In closing, I just want to say, yes, America is certainly at a crossroads. Will we be governed by the Constitution that served us well for over 230 years, or by a government run by the least qualified, most unscrupulous people who somehow rise to positions of power? Trump continues to implement his drain the swamp agenda despite the full power of the Beltway left and the media that mean to dispose him. Hillary, Schiff, and now Romney are swamp dwellers who have contempt for all of us in flyover country. So, to the rest of us, Trump is the unlikely savior of the American, the America that we knew and still love. You see, he fights for us. The Democrats and their agents fight against us. They mean to dictate how we live our lives in every sense of the word, control. As Mark Levine often says, often reminds us, they never mention the word freedom or liberty. And that, folks, is why they must be defeated. We can defeat them. We can defeat them in 2020. We can take back the Senate. We can, or the House. We can strengthen our numbers in the Senate, and we can reelect Donald Trump as President of the United States. Beyond our own personal votes, I call upon each one of you listening to this program today to dedicate to reach out to other people, to spread the word, to testify for our President, and to take him with the people you know before the throne of grace, and ask Almighty God to forgive our nation of our national sin and spare us and give us 4 more years of Donald Trump. God bless. Until next week.